Joining us now, Democratic Senator Chris Coons of Delaware, of course, a member of the Foreign Relations Committee, national co-chair of the Harris-Walz campaign. Senator Coons, Donald Trump not committing to say he wants Ukraine to win this war, also saying that it would not have started if he were president, and he could finish it like that. What do you say?
More fiction from Donald Trump. As you know all too well, Andrea, when he was president, Donald Trump showed an affection for Vladimir Putin. When the war in Ukraine, the full-scale invasion of Ukraine by Russia began, Donald Trump didn't denounce Putin's aggression. He didn't say that Putin was a dictator and an aggressor and that his troops were committing atrocities and human rights violations. He complimented Putin. He said he was very smart. And as we saw on the debate stage in Philadelphia on Tuesday night, he refuses to say that he will choose freedom over authoritarianism, that he will stand for the people of Ukraine who are fighting bravely against the aggression of Russia. More than 50 countries around the world have been providing support to Ukraine. This is one of the biggest accomplishments of the Biden-Harris administration, that they've pulled together our NATO allies in Europe and other countries around the world who together have provided more support than we have to Ukraine in terms of their refugees, their economic needs, and their military needs. And Donald Trump doesn't have some magical plan for ending this war in favor of Ukraine. He has a plan he won't tell us about to abandon Ukraine in the very first days after an election if he were to win. That would be tragic for NATO, for the West, for the United States, and certainly for the people of Ukraine.
Secretary Blinken in Kyiv yesterday said that the U.S. is considering the urging of President Zelensky to give Ukraine the permission to use the HIMARS, the long-range missiles, into Russia. The British Prime Minister has endorsed that. The Australians have, our other allies have. Why is the U.S. taking so long? The criticism is the U.S. takes too long to finally get there to what Zelensky needs to counteract Russia.
Well, Andrew, I've certainly heard that criticism before, and it's important for us to remember that our president has to balance legitimate concerns about escalation with the urgency of providing every tool the Ukrainians need.
Russia is counterattacking in Kursk. Do you support giving them that right?
I support providing every weapon that is available to the Ukrainians and giving them the ability to defend themselves as Russia is actively attacking into Ukraine. But I recently had a classified briefing on an escalation risk, and I respect deeply that President Biden, when he is making decisions about how far to permit the Ukrainians to strike inside Russia, is balancing our global interests and threats that we face to Americans and to our interests in that region and in other parts of the world. So I do think that we need to provide Ukraine with all the weapons and material they need to be successful in this war. And I know that President Biden and his senior national security team will consider very seriously the request of President Zelensky when he comes to the UN for the UN General Assembly and comes to meet with President Biden. I expect you'll hear a decision at that point.
Can you just say whether he should make that decision? Should he agree? Do you think?
Look, given what I know, I think he should, but it is a close call, and I respect President Biden's judgment that there are genuine risks of escalation.